the Detroit Lions will be without one of their best defensive playmakers while trying to avoid a second straight loss as the best team in the NFC comes into Ford Field. What up, though, everybody, and welcome to Lions Nation Unite. My name is Spencer Raxter of Woodward Sports. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Now, I know you guys know by now that Brian Branch, what he did to JuJu Smith-Schuster after the game, where Brian Branch said that JuJu Smith-Schuster blocked him in the back illegally, which he did, and it was in front of the ref, and it was not called by the ref. This is something that aggravated Brian Branch, rightfully so. It was a cheap shot from JuJu Smith-Schuster, and we know Brian Branch is kind of a notorious crash out at this point, and he took it a little too far. After the game, he went up to JuJu Smith-Schuster, and he gave him a palm strike right to the chin, and that resulted in JuJu coming after Branch and him swinging him around by his helmet and brawl assuming and people having to pull people off of a pile. Brian Branch is one of the best defensive players in the NFL. He's one of the best defensive players on this team, and he is a playmaker that this team needs, especially when Baker Mayfield, the MVP favorite, and the first place in the NFC, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are coming into Detroit for Monday Night Football. Now, Brian Branch was suspended by the NFL for one game for his incident in the Kansas City Chiefs game, or should I say after the Kansas City Chiefs game, and he's going to appeal this, but there's nothing to appeal, man. He did it. He walked right up to JuJu and he hit him in the mouth, and I know that a lot of people are like, yeah, JuJu deserves to be hit in the mouth. JuJu's kind of a punk. JuJu's this, JuJu's that. Yeah, he is. JuJu Smith-Schuster is notoriously kind of a little puss, but that doesn't mean you can go up to somebody after the game is over and assault them. And that's exactly what Brian Branch did. And here's what he had to say directly after the game of his involvement with JuJu Smith-Schuster.
What happened at the end of the game, man?
I did a little childish thing, but I'm tired of people doing stuff in between the play and refs don't catch it. Like, they be trying to bully me out there, and I don't think I should have never did it, but it was childish. I got blocked in the back illegally, and it was in front of the ref. The ref didn't do anything, and just stuff like that. And I could have got hurt off of that, but it's still I still shouldn't have done that. So.
Now, what Brian Branch said there was 100% true. JuJu Smith-Schuster hit him in the back illegally right in front of the ref, and it wasn't called. And it was a very dangerous play that could have injured Brian Branch, his back, his neck, and he could have been injured on that play. But that does not give him the right to do what he did. And he knows that he messed up. He said it was a childish play. He says he shouldn't have done that. And he's absolutely correct, because now the Detroit Lions are going to be without one of their most important defensive pieces in the most important game of the year, when the seeding for the NFC is on the line, when your life at the top of the NFC North is on the line, and you've got Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming into Detroit, and Brian Branch isn't going to be available in this game because of his own selfish actions. Now, I love Brian Branch. I love the way he plays. I love the edge he plays with. I love how vicious and tenacious he is on the defensive end, but he's a crash out, man. Whether he's throwing helmets, flipping off the crowd, or punching JuJu Smith-Schuster in the face, this has to get cleaned up. This has to get cleaned up. He's too important for this defense. He's too important for this team when it comes to flipping the field, when it comes to making these highlight plays and making turnovers and causing havoc. Brian Branch is too important for the Detroit Lions for him to be crashing out and causing himself to lose games. Now, it's done. What's done is done, and you just got to move on. I know they're going to appeal it to the league, but if anything, maybe he gets less of a fine, or JuJu Smith-Schuster gets fined because they show them the play that Brian Branch was reacting towards, but he's going to be suspended for a game. You can't just go up and do that to somebody after the game. It's literally assault. But here's what his coach, Dan Campbell, had to say regarding the incident.
Let me start with this. I love Brian Branch, but what he did is inexcusable, and it's not going to be accepted here. It's not what we do. It's not what we're about. I apologize to Coach Reed and the Chiefs and and Schuster. That's not okay. That's not what we do here, and it's not going to be okay. He knows it. Our team knows it, and so that's not what we do. As far as the game, we just didn't make the plays that needed.
So there's Dan Campbell, and it's so tough because Brian Branch walks such a thin line. Brian Branch walks such a thin line of playing with emotion, playing with tenacity, playing with physicality, and that might cause somebody to crash out, to boil over, to have those emotions all come out at once. And these plays seem to be happening to Brian Branch over and over, and especially on national television on Sunday Night Football in Kansas City, where you just kind of got your ass whooped flat out. It's not a good look for Brian Branch. It's not a good look for the league, and they were going to suspend him no matter what. So the Lions are going to be without one of their best players when Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come into town. Luckily, rookie phenom wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, well, not luckily, you don't want to see anybody get injured, but he's more than likely not going to play in this game with a hamstring injury. Already with Mike Evans out, Godwin, we don't know what's going on there. Bucky Irving is out. So this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense is going to be very limited on the weapons they have when they come into Detroit. But Brian Branch, man, I would just hate to see this happen in not week 5. I would hate to see this happen when the fate of the division is on the line, when your playoff lives are on the line. And now that's a serious conversation that you're going to have because Brian Branch has shown that he lets his emotions get the best of him. And like I said, I love the way he plays, where it's balls to the wall, violent, physical, emotional football. And I don't want him to stop doing that, but he might need a babysitter on this defense. He might need somebody to stand next to him to make sure he doesn't walk up to an opponent after the game and punch him in the mouth. And if that's something that has to be done, then that's something that has to be done. But I think it's on Brian Branch more than it is anybody else that he needs to control his emotions. He needs to control himself from crashing out like this because, yeah, now it's just, Game 6 Monday Night Football. It's a big matchup, but ultimately in the scheme of things, this one isn't going to hurt you that much, but it could down the line. And it could against the Green Bay Packers. And now this is a thing that refs are going to be looking out for even more, that opposing players are going to try to take advantage of. They know Brian Branch is a crash out. They're going to try to get into his head. They're going to throw some dirty blocks at him. They're going to throw some dirty chips at him. And they're going to try to get him to crash out and get himself kicked out of the game because he is that much of a difference maker that teams will do this to try to get under his skin and try to get him kicked out of the game. And Brian Branch has not shown the emotional smarts to maintain his composure in situations like that. I love the guy. I love what he brings, but he really needs to lock it up, especially when these games start meaning more and more for the Detroit Lions, trying to win the North, trying to lock down maybe a number 1 seed in the NFC. You need all hands on deck, especially with the injuries you already have in that secondary. You can't afford to be losing a playmaker like Brian Branch over a petty beef. And that's what it was. Yeah, JuJu is a bitch for doing that. Yeah, that was an illegal block that the refs should have called. Get over it. You can't allow yourself to be swept up in this kind of emotion, and cost your team. And that's exactly what he did. And like I said, now there's nothing you can do about it. What's done is done. He's going to have to serve his game, and then he's going to have to come back, and he's going to have to show these guys, listen, I know I messed up. I know that's on me. Now let me change this game. Now let me change that game. So when you're in Minnesota or you're in Philadelphia or you're in Washington after the bye week, I expect Brian Branch to get his hands on some footballs. He's going to be playing pissed off more than he normally is. And he wears his heart on his sleeve, but he has to contain those emotions. If he wants to be a part of this Detroit Lions run, we can't have him getting suspended because JuJu Smith-Schuster hits you. It sucks. I love the guy. Like I said, I don't want Brian Branch to change anything about his play style. The emotion, the physicality, the tenacity that he plays defense with is everything that they want, everything this coaching staff wants. But you have to have the emotional intelligence to keep that between the lines. You cannot continue to put yourself and your team in jeopardy because you can't control your emotions. I love Brian Branch. I love the crash out style he plays with, but you can't have the crash outs after that, and you damn sure can't get suspended when you got the number one team in the NFC coming into town. This is going to be a big loss for the Detroit Lions defense, and they're lucky that this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense is hurting as bad as it is, because it could have been a real big problem. Brian Branch more than likely going to be out for the Tampa Bay game. Let's hope the Detroit Lions can get it done without him. Appreciate you tapping in. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to Lions Nation Unite. Give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Go to lionsnationunite.com to get some of the best merch in the game. My name is Spencer Exter of the Woodward Sports. I appreciate you guys tapping in. We'll see you next time.